Okie dokie. So the thing we said about in terms of sort of the sequence of setup, the three things in the order. First thing starts with the club head. Put the golf club down next to the golf ball, aiming to where your target is, wherever that target may be, yellow flag, red flag, whatever it may be on the golf course. Get your grip correct, and then spine angle as we get the grip and the hands on the golf club. And the final thing then we will do is set your feet roughly as wide as your shoulders, okay? So that's going to be your sequence of setup. Get yourself in a good position. We can see your grip now. Your left thumb is covering your right thumb, and we can see two knuckles there. You'll be able to see over your right hand, okay? Compare that to your grip before. We can see your hands are quite separated there. It's going to cause some extra movement there that we don't want. Now then, take away. You kind of got the backswing going back nice. You're hinging the wrist there, creating the L shape. Not as long as on some of the swings you had, but you're getting more towards sort of that position, okay? We could push the arms back a little bit further, which will get a bit more power, but overall the position isn't too bad. That club getting a little bit closed. If the club's not pointing straight towards the camera and the club is pointing a little bit down this way, that right wrist is going a little bit this way, and that's part of the reason why that right hand might be a little bit this way, which will shorten the back. So obviously the wrist going that way, you can't go very far. You go that way, is more range of motion, okay? But compare it to where you used to go, sort of first session, which is fine. There you go. You can see the club's going back nowhere near as far. You see the right wrist now, right wrist pointing down, automatically sort of creating that bow. So as we go back there now, the sensation from here is you've got to move to your right side and down. You can see your movement now onto that right side, striking the ball there now, getting the club to the bottom of the ball. We can see that ball now shooting up in the air. Okay, it's got some loft. We're using the loft of the golf club, and when you finish this swing, all your weight now is up on that foot there, and that's a very, very good swing position there. Okay, you compare it to where you were back here, leaning back, even if you haven't watched golf ever before, okay? I'm sure you've seen some guys hit a few shots before. You can see the difference in the two positions there. Now, what we're looking for really, like I say, similar to a sort of throwing a ball sensation, you want all your weight to be on your front foot as you would if you were throwing a ball. Your left foot now up on its toe. Chances are if you were throwing it as far as you could, that left foot would be sort of lifting off the ground, but it'd still be twisting, and all the movement now coming through the hips and the shoulders and the body, creating the power. There's no lean back as we've got here to try and lift it up in the air. As we said, we're ultimately trying to catch the ground as the club comes down after the golf ball. So the club is coming down a sort of descending blow, trying to sort of get the club to the bottom of the ball, and it's that sort of strike down that sends the ball up. The angle on the club face will get up in the air, not you as an individual trying to lift it or scoop it. But every golfer, anyone I've ever taught in the last 15 or so years, who try as a first session, they try to lift the ball up in the air. And in some ways you're lucky I haven't had to have been too much to the range or looked online or done too much. So what a lot of people do, they'll go to a driving range and they'll see the guys hitting these shots off these little rubber tee pegs you'll see where they go in that hole, okay? And they'll sort of, they think they're whacking the ball a long way. I'll try that. They'll stick it on that tee peg and the ball then goes way up. Oh, this is great. The ball's going up in the air now. But leaning back, hitting up on a ball on a tee peg is okay on a tee peg, but then when you're on the golf course, the ball's on the ground. So what happens is you encourage a swing, striking a ball up in the air, getting the ball going where you want to go. Then when you go and play golf, it's on the ground now. It's a different sort of setup. And now, of course, when you play golf, I've seen guys had 6 months on the range hitting the ball 100 yards, and this is easy peasy. And then on the golf course the first time, they almost missed the ball every time because they're used to a ball being an inch and a half in the air. And if the ball's just under 2 inches, your margin of error now is going to be a tiny little amount. Okay, so getting that finished position now up onto that right side is going to be your key thing. Like I say, in terms of practice, I think setup routine, you can just sort of keep that in mind in terms of the three processes: club, grip, and then setting your feet. In terms of the backswing, what you're looking for is creating that L shape, okay, as the arms sort of push back and we hinge the wrist. Don't sort of just try and pick the arm straight up. There is some sort of movement away from the body, but we're still creating that right arm on the club, making that sort of 90-degree angle, okay? So you could practice that with, you don't know if you're a golf club, is it? Have you got any clubs at all to sort of use?
No,
okay, that's fine.
I used to.
That's fine, gathering dust, I guess. No. So I mean, you can say it doesn't have to be a golf club, it could be a stick or something, or you can hold on to where you can just sort of see it's coming out of your hands there. Give yourself some sort of indication of where the club's pointing, and then say the movement-wise, if you want to go and practice, is that body movement. Now that's going to be your main movement I would focus on. Because I think you kind of get your backswing pretty good now. You thought about that for the first sort of half a session. You kind of got there and weren't sure where the wrist was going. But now, for the most part, I think 7 times out of 10 you kind of get it. And I think that's enough for me. Swinging the golf club back, working on striking down. It's quite good if you want to as well. But 2 objects that we can see either side of the golf ball, and you're trying to strike the ground after them. So the club will be coming down, hitting the ground nearer the target than it would be hitting the ground behind the ball or
Okay.
missing the ground completely. So
Sure.
does that all make sense?
Yeah,
Any,
yeah,
any
definitely.
questions at all on that at all?
No,
Yeah.
fine. I think
Yeah.
it's just trying to get used to the transition from here
To the ground,
here
exactly.
and-
And that's the biggest thing. And for me, the most important part of the golf swing is when you make contact with the golf ball.
Mm.
What's the club doing there? Is the club face pointing to the right, or is the club up in the
Yeah.
air, or what you're doing and stuff?
Yeah.
But you're certainly getting the club. You can see the contact there now. That ball's shooting up in the air.
Mm.
Whereas this one now, so the ball just sort of you just pop. That's a top shot. You can see the club's gone past the ball,
Yeah.
and the ball's technically still there
Yeah.
because you've topped it. The ball hasn't actually gone away anywhere, so it
Right.
just popped up in the air and gone low.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, mate. Right, have a couple more then, and we'll have a see how it goes.